Okay, my dear students, welcome to the second video lesson of the chapter Chemical Equilibrium. Okay, now as I told you in my first video regarding chemical equilibrium, today I will just briefly introduce you the law which is called Henry's law. Okay, now what is Henry's law? What is Henry's law? Let us have a look. Now, Henry's law, it is a gas law which states that at the amount of the gas that is dissolved in a liquid is directly proportional to the partial pressure of that gas above the liquid when the temperature is kept constant. So it is a law, it is a gas law for the amount of gas that is dissolved in a liquid. So the amount of gas that is dissolved in a liquid, it is directly proportional to the partial pressure of that gas above the liquid when the temperature is kept constant. The constant of proportionality for this relationship is called Henry's law constant, usually denoted by Kh. Now, I want all of you to remember this relationship. The mathematical formula of Henry's law is given below. P proportional to C or P is equal to KHC, where this capital P or P denotes the partial pressure of the gas in the atmosphere above the liquid. Capital C denotes the concentration of the dissolved gas, and KH is a constant known as the Henry's constant for the gas. Okay, so this much information is sufficient for you all in this chapter. If any numericals come, it will be based on this formula only. Okay, where the value of P will be given, C will be given, or then you have to find the KH, or KH will be given, C will be given, you have to find the partial pressure. Direct problems. Okay, now let us move on to the next part of the chapter. It is called ionic equilibrium. Now, ionic equilibrium, Ostwald's dilution law. Now, in ionic equilibrium, the ionic substance dissociates into their ions in polar solvents. Whatever polar solvents are there, it will dissociate, breaks down into ions in solvents which are polar. That means water is a polar solvent. The ions formed are always in equilibrium with its undissociated solute in the solution. Okay, representation of an ionic equilibrium is given over here commonly. We'll be discussing in detail later on. Now, introduction over here. Introduction to ionic equilibrium. Okay, let us see over here. Introduction to ionic equilibrium. Let me here. Now, introduction to ionic equilibrium. Have a look. Reactants and products coexist in equilibrium. We know this fact. So that reactant conversion to product is always less than 100%. That is very true. Amount of reactant being converting to the product is always less than 100%. Equilibrium reaction may involve the decomposition of a covalent non-polar reactant or ionization of ionic compounds into the ions in polar solvents. In this section of ionic equilibrium, we will learn about the ionic equilibrium in ionic solutions. Substances in ionic equilibrium can be classified into two categories on the basis of the ability to conduct electricity given as under. So let us have a look here. Now we have Ostwald's dilution law. State Ostwald's dilution law. Answer: Ostwald's dilution law describes the dissociation constant of the weak electrolytes with the degree. Ostwald's dilution law describes the dissociation constant of the weak electrolyte with the degree of ionization or dissociation alpha. Remember, it is alpha. And the concentration of the weak electrolyte. Okay, so I will come to the actual law after some time. So this law, the main target of this law is to describe the dissociation constant of the weak electrolyte with the degree of dissociation and the concentration of the weak electrolyte. Suppose if I take a binary electrolyte AB, which dissociates into A plus and B minus ions. So for very weak electrolyte, since the degree of dissociation is much less than 1 minus alpha is equal to 1. So based on this, K is equal to C alpha square, or alpha is equal to root under K by C. Okay, this we'll be discussing later on. For the moment, I have to remember this relationship. Now concentration of any ion, C alpha is equal to root under Ck or root under K by B. Okay, this K is called dissociation constant of a weak acid. Alpha is the degree of dissociation, and remember, Ostwald's dilution law states that only at infinite dilution, that means only at infinite, that means very dilute solution, the weak electrolyte undergoes complete ionization. A very important sentence over here. Ostwald's dilution law states that only at infinite dilution, the weak electrolyte undergoes complete ionization. That means the binary electrolyte must be very dilute. It must be at infinite dilution. Then only this electrolyte under consideration undergoes complete ionization to produce ions. Okay. Now let us work on the derivation of Ostwald's dilution law. The application of the law of mass action to weak electrolytes is known as Ostwald's dilution law, and we have already heard the statement of Ostwald's dilution law in the previous slide. Let us try to derive it. The Ostwald's dilution law. Let AB be the weak electrolyte which ionizes as follows. AB, weak electrolyte, it is forming A plus and B minus. Initial concentration of AB, it is C. Let us take it to be C. Initially the concentration of A plus will be 0, B minus will be 0, correct? Now when equilibrium has reached, upon equilibrium, the concentration and equilibrium of AB will be C 1 minus alpha. Alpha is the degree of dissociation of the weak electrolyte AB, and at equilibrium the concentration of A plus will be C alpha, B minus will be C alpha again. Now if you apply the law of mass action to this weak electrolyte ionization, then we can write K, equilibrium constant, is equal to A plus, concentration of A plus, into concentration of B minus divided by concentration of AB. Now putting the values over here at equilibrium, A plus is C alpha, B minus is C alpha, and down over here AB concentration is C 1 minus alpha. That is coming to C alpha square 1 minus alpha, because C and C is cancelling. C is coming C square, so it is cancelling. Now note that for very weak electrolyte, the degree of ionization, dissociation is very small as compared to 1. Therefore we consider over here 1 minus alpha is 1. Thus we have over here on the next slide, K is equal to C alpha square, or alpha square is equal to K by C, or alpha, degree of dissociation, is equal to root under K by C. This is what has to be derived from the Ostwald's dilution law. Now this above relationship implies that the degree of dissociation of a weak electrolyte is inversely proportional to the square root of its concentration. Okay, the degree of dissociation of a weak electrolyte is inversely proportional to the square root of its concentration. So the degree of dissociation of a weak electrolyte is, you can say, inversely proportional to the square root of its concentration. Okay, concentration is 1 by V, isn't it? So the above relationship shows that the degree of dissociation of weak electrolyte is directly proportional to the square root of its dilution volume. You can see, okay, directly proportional over there. Now moving further to the next slide quickly. Non-electrolytes. What are non-electrolytes? These are substances that consist of molecules that bear no electric charge, do not dissociate into their constituent ions, and thus do not conduct electricity in their aqueous solution or molten state. For example, sugar solution. Electrolytes. These are substances that dissociate into their constituent ions in their aqueous solution and thus conduct electricity in their aqueous solution or molten state. For example, salt solution, acid solution, base solution. Electrolytes in ionic equilibrium can be further classified into strong and weak electrolytes. So, now strong electrolytes are substances that upon dissociation in their ionic solution ionize completely, while in the case of electrolytes, the dissociation is partial in nature. Examples are given over here. You can have a look. Sodium chloride, in aqueous solution state, it undergoes complete ionization to produce maximum number of sodium and chloride ions, whereas acetic acid, it is a weak electrolyte. It undergoes partial ionization to render some amount of acetate ions and hydrogen ions. Okay. Now, in case of strong electrolyte, the dissociation reaction is said to be complete, thus moving in the forward direction only. Whereas in case of weak electrolyte, the reaction is said to be reversible in nature. Okay. In case of weak electrolyte, the equilibrium is established between the ions and the unionized molecules, which can be termed as ionic equilibrium. So here is what we are going to discuss in this chapter. In the case of weak electrolyte, the equilibrium is established between the ions and the unionized molecules, which can be termed as ionic equilibrium. So the equilibrium that is established between the ions and the unionized molecules is termed as ionic equilibrium, which is the second part of this chapter. Now, moving further, Ostwald's dilution law, degree of dissociation. Okay. Now, Ostwald's dilution law is the law. It is the applicable of the law of mass action to weak electrolytes in solution. Okay, this I've already told you that time only. Okay, so this is already done. This limitation of Ostwald's dilution law is already there. The law holds good only for weak electrolytes and fails completely in the case of strong electrolytes. So this is one important point to remember. Okay, so whenever Ostwald's dilution law comes into your mind, degree of dissociation, keep in mind that this law holds good only for weak electrolytes, and this law is going to fail if you take the cases of strong electrolytes. Okay. Further, ionic equilibrium formulas. It becomes necessary to know that what fraction of initial amount of the reactants are converted into products at equilibrium. The fraction of the initial molecules that are converted at equilibrium is called the degree of dissociation or ionization. Remember this. So this is the definition for degree of dissociation. The fraction of the initial molecules that are converted at equilibrium, where? Into ions. Now, degree of dissociation or ionization alpha. Number of reactant molecules dissociated ionized at the start divided by number of reactant molecules at the start. Degree of dissociation in ionic equilibrium can be expressed in percentage as well. Percentage degree of dissociation is alpha, that is number of reactant molecules dissociated or ionized at the start divided by number of reactant molecules at the start into 100. Okay. Now, here remember, the degree of dissociation depends on nature of the electrolyte, whether it is strong, whether it is weak, whether it is insoluble. Nature of the solvent. High dielectric solvents increase ionization. Remember that. So, if the solvents have high dielectric constant, they will increase ionization or dissociation of the electrolyte into ions. Dilution. Larger the dilution, higher the ionization. Temperature. Higher the temperature, larger the ionization, and presence of common ions increases the ionization of the weak electrolyte. Okay. So these are some concepts over here to understand. Okay. And try to remember this. Learn this part. Okay. The degree of ionization depends upon these few factors over here, like nature of the electrolyte, nature of the solvent, dilution, temperature, etc. etc. Okay. Then, now we have over here dissociation of ionic compounds in polar solvents. Polar solvent, one example of polar solvent is water. Okay. Ionic compounds dissolve in polar solvents with ionization into cations and anions. The ionized ions are in equilibrium with the undissociated molecules. So you can have a look illustration over here. AXBY reversibly it is producing ions, cations and anions as represented over here. Ionic solids in solution. Strong electrolytes alpha is almost equal to 100% ionization. Weak electrolytes alpha is 10% ionization. Sparingly soluble electrolytes alpha is 100%, you can say. Okay. Now examples: hydrogen chloride, hydrochloric acid, sodium hydroxide, salts of ammonium hydroxides, organic acids, all this, and silver chloride, barium sulfate. Coming to ionization of weak electrolytes, in infinite dilution, all electrolytes are fully ionized. In a concentrated solution, weak electrolytes exist in equilibrium with the unionized molecules. So concentration of ions are important in many practical situations like acid-base solubility and conductance of the solution. So try to understand this properly. In infinite dilution, that means when dilution is very high, all electrolytes are fully ionized, whatever it is, whether it is strong or weak, whatever. In a concentrated solution, weak electrolytes exist at equilibrium with the unionized molecules. Concentration of the ions are important in many practical situations like acid-base solubility and conductance of the solution. Okay. Now there is one important term over here which is called common ion effect. The effect of common ion on degree of dissociation. Weak electrolytes are poorly ionized in aqueous solution. Their ionization may further be reduced if one of the ions are present from another source. This is called common ion effect. Okay. Examples, try to understand this. Ammonium hydroxide is a weak base. On addition of ammonium chloride or salt, ammonium ion from it will make the ammonium ions to combine with the hydroxide ion to form unionized ammonium hydroxide. Have a look over here. Ammonium hydroxide, it's a weak base. It produces partially ammonium ions and hydroxyl ions. But to this, if I add ammonium chloride, what will happen? It is going to produce ammonium ions which will combine with the hydroxyl to give back ammonium hydroxide. Okay. In the base hydrolysis of oil, the sodium salt of fatty acid soap is in a dissolved state. When sodium chloride salt is added, the concentration of sodium ions increases considerably. So here again, for soap, okay, these are the ions. If we add sodium chloride, the concentration of sodium ions is becoming higher. So this sodium ions, it is combining back with the fatty acid ions to give back soap. Hence the ionic product, this product of this ion and sodium ion exceeds the soluble product of soap, and therefore soap precipitates out from the solution. This is called salting out of soap. Okay. Then manufacture of sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. It is done by Solvay's soda process. Okay. The carbon dioxide gas is passed through ammoniacal brine to precipitate out sodium bicarbonate. The steps are here. I'm just writing it once more. NH4OH plus CO2, it is giving NH4HCO3 ammonium bicarbonate. Then ammonium bicarbonate, we add sodium chloride, it produces NH4HCO3 plus ammonium chloride NH2Cl. Okay, got it. Now sodium bicarbonate, this one is NaHCO3. Okay, is precipitated first because of its lower soluble product as compared to those of ammonium chloride, ammonium bicarbonate and sodium chloride. So this is how you prepare baking soda, okay, by the Solvay's soda process. These are some uses. Okay, now equilibrium in physical processes. Let us look at this. Solid liquid equilibrium. Solid liquid equilibrium, the equilibrium represented as water is ice over here. This is water state. Okay, rate of melting of ice is equal to rate of freezing of water. The system here is dynamic equilibrium and following can be concluded. Both the opposing processes occur simultaneously at the same time. Both the processes occur at the same rate so that the amount of ice and water remains constant. Next one is liquid vapor equilibrium. Liquid vapor. This one is solid liquid. This one is liquid vapor equilibrium between liquid water and water vapor. Okay. Rate of evaporation is called rate of condensation. So when there is equilibrium between liquid and vapor, it is called liquid vapor equilibrium. Then third one is solid vapor equilibrium. This type of equilibrium is attained when solids sublime to vapor phase. For example, when solid iodine is placed in a closed vessel, violet vapors start appearing in the vessel whose intensity increases with time and ultimately it becomes constant. So here example is given: iodine solid becoming iodine vapor in equilibrium. Therefore, rate of sublimation of iodine to form iodine vapor is rate of condensation of iodine vapor to give solid iodine. Okay. Now, equilibrium involving dissolution of solid in liquid. When a limited amount of salt or sugar or any solute dissolved in a given amount of water solution is formed, at a given temperature state is reached when no more solute can be dissolved, then the solution is called a saturated solution. The equilibrium between a solid and its solution is indicated by the saturated solution represented below. Sugar in solution, sugar solid. Here, dissolution and precipitation takes place with the same speed. On adding a small amount of radioactive sugar to the saturated solution, it will be found that the sugar present in the solution as well as in the solid state is radioactive. So that is equilibrium involving dissolution of a solid in a liquid. Next, equilibrium between a gas and its solution in a liquid. This type of equilibrium can be seen by the following example. Let us consider a sealed soda water bottle in which carbon dioxide gas is dissolved under high pressure. A state of equilibrium is attained between carbon dioxide present in the solution and the vapors of the gas. So, your carbon dioxide gas present in the solution. Okay. Now, once more over here, Henry's law. The solubility of a gas in a liquid at a certain temperature is governed by a law which is called Henry's law. It states that the mass of a gas that dissolves in a given mass of solvent at any temperature is proportional to the pressure of the gas above the surface of the solvent, where this is mass directly proportional to P, pressure, M is equal to KHP, okay, or concentration terms. Okay, so learn this also, okay, in terms of mass and partial pressure. There are some characteristics of equilibria involving physical processes. The equilibrium can be attained only in closed systems at a given temperature. At equilibrium, the measurable properties of the system remains constant. Whatever can be measured, it is constant. The equilibrium is dynamic since both the forward and backward processes occur at same rate. At equilibrium, the concentration of substances become constant at constant temperature. The value of equilibrium constant represents the extent to which the process proceeds before equilibrium is reached. Equilibrium in chemical processes. Like equilibria in physical system, it can be also achieved in chemical processes involving reversible chemical reactions carried in closed containers. So over here, example is there for chemical processes. Then this is something which I have already talked in my previous video. The dynamic nature of chemical equilibrium can be demonstrated in the synthesis of ammonia by the Haber's process over here. Haber started his experiment with the known amounts of nitrogen and hydrogen at high temperature and pressure. At regular intervals of time, he determined the amount of ammonia present. He also found out concentration of unreacted nitrogen and hydrogen at the same time. After a certain time, he found that the combustion of the mixture remained the same even though some of the reactants are still present. This constancy indicates the attainment of equilibrium. In general, for a reversible reaction, chemical equilibrium can be shown by this general reaction. Okay, have a look at this graph. Okay, over here, this is molar concentration. Here it is time. Ammonia curve. Okay, this is the product. Now here we need hydrogen reactant concentration. Okay, then product is formed with time. Depiction of equilibrium for the reaction nitrogen-hydrogen to give ammonia. Okay, this is a graphical representation. Then, now equilibrium in homogeneous system. When in a system involving reversible reaction, reactants and products are in the same phase, then the system is said or called as homogeneous system. So same phase, gas, gas, gas. After some time, it can be observed that an equilibrium is formed. The equilibrium can be seen by constancy in the color of the reaction mixture. So the color of the reaction mixture gives us the idea about the equilibrium state. Okay. Next we have law of chemical equilibrium. At a constant temperature, the rate of a chemical reaction is directly proportional to the product of the molar concentrations of the reactants, each raised to a power equal to the corresponding stoichiometric coefficient as represented by the balanced chemical equation. Okay, this is something I have discussed in the previous video. I am repeating once more again and again so that this becomes permanently settled down in your heads. Okay, now this is something which I have derived in my previous video. This is something I have derived already. Okay, now if you take a general reaction, it becomes like this, you know. Now if you take the reaction between catalytic oxidation of ammonia, then the equilibrium constant can be represented in this manner. Okay, now there is one relation between equilibrium constant K, quotient Q, and Gibbs free energy. So try to learn this formula. Delta G is equal to delta G naught plus RT ln Q, where delta G, this G is called standard Gibbs free energy. At equilibrium, delta G is 0, Q is Kc. So apply this formula, you get delta G naught is equal to minus RT ln K, equilibrium constant, or ln K is equal to minus delta G naught by RT. This is the formula which I applied in one of the numericals which I have done in my previous video. If you take anti-log for this, no, K becomes E to the power of minus delta G naught by RT. So learn this page, make a note down of this page. You know, it's a relation between equilibrium constant K, C, reaction quotient Q, and Gibbs free energy G. Okay. Now factors affecting equilibrium. This is something which I have already explained in my previous video class. This also I have done. Okay. Effect of catalyst also I have done. Now ionic equilibrium in solution. Okay. Electrolytes is done. Strong electrolytes is done. Weak electrolytes is done. Ionic equilibrium here. The equilibrium formed between ions and unionized substance is called ionic equilibrium. Have a look at this. It's a weak electrolyte. In aqueous solution, it dissociates partially into ions, acetate ions and hydronium ions. Okay. There's an equilibrium between the ions and the undissociated molecules. Now, acids are the substances which turn blue litmus paper to red and liberate dihydrogen gas on reacting with some metals. Bases are the substances which turn red litmus blue. It is bitter in taste. Common examples over here. Okay. Then Arrhenius concept, a very important concept in this chapter with respect to acids and bases. According to this concept, Arrhenius theory, acids are substances that dissolve in water to give dihydrogen ions, but bases are substances that produce hydroxyl ions after dissolution in water. Okay, so here if you take an acid HX, it produces H plus and X minus, reacts with water to form hydronium ions. Okay, dissolution of base molecule in aqueous solution, it is producing hydroxyl ions. So that is according to the Arrhenius concept. Okay, now this Arrhenius concept, it has got a limitation. According to Arrhenius concept, an acid gives H plus ions in water, but the H plus ion does not exist independently because of its very small size. Okay, and intense electric field. It does not account for the basicity of substances like ammonia, which does not possess a hydroxyl group. That's why we have a new theory which is known as the Bronsted-Lowry acids and bases theory. According to Bronsted-Lowry, an acid is a substance which is capable of donating a pair hydrogen ion, and bases substances capable of accepting a hydrogen ion. In other words, acids are proton donors and bases are proton acceptors. Remember this, it is explained over here. A base, acid. Base is proton acceptor, acid is proton donor. So it is forming ammonia, will form ammonium ion. This is called conjugate acid. And hydroxyl ion is formed, which is called conjugate base. Okay, water is losing a proton, over here ammonia is adding a proton. So bases are proton acceptors, acids are proton donors. So this ammonium ion is a conjugate acid, hydroxyl ion is a conjugate base. This is an important concept for all of you to understand according to the Bronsted-Lowry acids and bases theory. Okay, then if you look at another example over here, hydrochloric acid, water, take it to be a base. So hydrochloric acid produces hydronium ion, which is a conjugate acid. It is losing proton, whereas this water, which is acting as a base, it adds proton acceptor. Okay, it is forming over here conjugate acid. This one is forming a conjugate base. Here water acts as a base because it accepts the proton. Chloride is a conjugate base of HCl, and HCl is a conjugate acid of chloride. Similarly, water is conjugate base of an acid, hydronium ion, and hydronium ion is a conjugate acid of base water. Okay. Then Lewis acids and bases. According to Lewis, acid is a substance which accepts electron pair. So A, acid, accepts electron pair, and base is a substance which donates an electron pair. A very wonderful concept. Electron deficient species like aluminum chloride, boron hydride, BH3, hydronium ion can act as Lewis acids, while species like water, ammonia can donate a pair of electrons and can act as Lewis bases. So ionization of acids and bases. Strength of an acid or base is determined with the help of extent of ionization in aqueous solution, pH scale. Hydrogen ion concentration are measured as the number of gram ions of hydrogen ion present per liter of solution. Since these concentrations are usually small, the concentration is generally expressed as the pH of the solution, pH being the logarithm of the reciprocal of the hydrogen ion concentration. So this is something which you have learned in class 10 also. pH is equal to negative logarithm to the concentration of hydrogen ions. pH of pure water is given as 7. For acid solution, pH is less than 7. Basic solution, pH is greater than 7. For neutral solution, pH is equal to 7. This key W is called ionic product of water. Ionic product of water is equal to the product of the concentration of hydronium ion and the product of the concentration of the hydroxyl ion, that is equal to 10 power minus 40. And pKW is equal to pH plus pOH, that is equal to 40. Okay, taking empty log. Now we have di and polybasic acids. Acids which contain more than one ionizable proton per molecule are called dibasic acids or polybasic acids or polyprotic acids. Common examples are oxalic acid, sulfuric acid, phosphoric acid. The ionization reactions for dibasic acid are given over here. It ionizes in two steps, you know. One H plus, HX minus. Again, second step, this HX minus dissociating another H plus and X2 minus. So equilibrium constant, it can be written in two steps, one step over here, another step over here. So the final equilibrium constant is obtained by adding Ka1 plus Ka2 over here for the dibasic acid. Okay. Then factors affecting acid strength. When the strength of HA bond decreases, this way, the strength of hydrogen and acid bond increases, then size increases, acid strength increases. The energy required to break the bond decreases, HA becomes a stronger acid. As the size of A increases down the group, HA bond decreases and so the acid strength increases. Remember this. In a period as the electronenity of A increases, the strength of the acid increases. So electronenity increases, acid strength also increases. Okay. Next we have common ion effect. If in an aqueous solution of a weak electrolyte, a strong electrolyte is added having a common ion with the weak electrolyte, then the dissociation of the weak electrolyte is decreased or suppressed. The effect by which the dissociation of weak electrolyte is suppressed is known as the common ion. For example, if we take a like solution like acetic acid, a small amount of sodium acetate is added to this. Due to the presence of common ions, the equilibrium will be shifted to the left. It will go in this direction. So acetic acid, we are adding sodium acetate or strong electrolyte. So what is happening? The concentration of acetate ions is increasing. You can see over here. So that is going to react with H plus and it can go in the backward direction. Thus the distribution of acetic acid will get decreased or suppressed. That is called common ion. Okay. Now hydrolysis of salts and the pH of the solutions. Salt hydrolysis means salt plus water gives acid plus base. Hydrolysis is a process which is a reverse of neutralization reaction. Some examples are given over here. Ammonium nitrate in water, it is giving ammonium hydroxide plus nitric acid. Okay. Reverse of neutralization, it is given in ionic state over here. After hydrolysis, will the acidic pH be less than 7? Since only cations of the salt precipitate in the hydrolysis, it is known as cationic hydrolysis. If you look at hydrolysis of salts of strong base and weak acids, over here, strong base, weak acid, okay, same thing here also, okay. Have a look. Acetate ions, sodium ions, water, it is forming acetic acid, so Na plus and OH minus, okay. After hydrolysis, the solution will have a pH of greater than 7 because hydroxyl ions are there, okay. In this type of hydrolysis, only anions of salt take part in the hydrolysis. It is known as anionic hydrolysis. That time it was cationic, now it is anionic. Now, hydrolysis of weak acids and weak base. Salts belong to this type are ammonium acetate, ammonium carbonate, etc. etc. So it is done over here. Ammonium acetate, ionizing, equilibrium, okay. pH of solution depends upon the relative strength of the acid and the base, okay. Buffer solution. The solution which resists change in pH on dilution or with the addition of small amounts of acid or alkali are called buffer solutions, okay. That resist. Buffer solutions are those solutions that resist, that prevent the change of the pH on dilution or with the addition of small amount of either an acid or an alkali, and such solutions are called buffer solutions. So a very good example of a buffer solution is a mixture of acetic acid and sodium acetate or carbonic acid and hydrochloric acid. Examples: acid buffer, weak acid and its salt with strong base are known as acid buffer. Example over weak acid, strong salt of the same acid, okay. Basic buffer, weak base and its salt with a strong acid known as basic buffer. Examples over here: ammonium chloride and ammonium hydroxide. Over here, weak base and its salt, strong salt, okay. Then coming to solubility products quickly in this chapter. Solubility products is applicable to sparingly soluble salt. There is equilibrium between ions and unionized solid substance. Consider this barium sulfate, sparingly soluble salt. Saturated solution, it forms barium ion, sulfate ions. In water, it gives back barium sulfate. The equilibrium constant is given this way. So, how to write KSP? KSP stands for solubility product. This KSP is called solubility product, that is equal to K concentration of barium sulfate, that is equal to concentration of barium ions into concentration of sulfate ions. Am I clear? So here this KSP is equal to equilibrium constant into concentration of the salt. Okay, this is to be remembered. KSP is called the solid product constant or simply solid product. Under equilibrium condition, you can say KSP is equal to QSP. Okay. The solubility of salts of weak acids like phosphates increases at lower pH. Weak acids, salts of weak acids like phosphates increases at lower pH. Then equilibrium. This is something I have told you in my previous video. Equilibrium constant Kc. Okay. Le-Chatelier's principle is also discussed. Now here you can pause this video and copy these important terms: electrolytes, Le-Chatelier's principles, RNS concept, Bronsted-Lowry concept, conjugate base and conjugate acid, conjugate pair of acid and base, Lewis acid, pH scale, buffer solution, solid product. Okay, these are the terms, definitions to be learnt from this chapter. Okay. Okay, I'm waiting for you all to go through this on your own. Okay, one sparingly soluble salt. Okay, silver chloride is giving Ag plus and Cl minus. So Ksp for this will be Ksp for this will be K into concentration of AgCl, that will be equal to concentration of Ag plus into concentration of Cl minus. Okay, so my dear students, I would like to end my this class here only for today. In my next class, I shall be discussing more important concepts in this chapter and try to complete this chapter in my next video, that is video 3. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good day.